calling in the feds. Baltimore's mayor wants the Justice Department to investigate police patterns. Premeditated practice? New evidence that the co-pilot rehearsed a controlled descent just hours before a deadly crash.
Questi non sono scherzi, è serio.
No joke. Pope Francis warns husbands to take seriously the command to love their wives as Christ loves the church. And healthcare alternative. A Catholic cost-sharing plan draws support from church leaders. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Wednesday, May 6th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. Baltimore's mayor asks federal investigators to look for a possible pattern of excessive police force or discriminatory policing. Susanne LaFrankie is at the White House with more tonight.
Brian, the extra police and National Guard troops sent into Baltimore after rioting broke out last week are no longer in place. The governor today lifted the state of emergency. But Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake wants the entire police department scrutinized, even amid harsh criticism. Even though complaints of excessive force by police in Baltimore are down, the mayor wants a probe.
The Department of Justice has employed these investigations in communities across our nation to reform serious patterns and practices of excessive force, biased policing, and other unconstitutional practices.
Just yesterday, Attorney General Loretta Lynch visited the beleaguered city.
Everyone with whom I was privileged to meet is committed to making that better. And by that, I mean both community and police alike.
Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby announced charges against 6 police officers involved in the arrest and death of Freddie Gray last week. The city's police commissioner says he didn't know until right before it was announced on national television.
I found out that the state attorney was going on in what she was going to present probably about 10 minutes before she went on. She gave me a phone call and told me what she was about to do and that she was going on live.
Baltimore police say it's a rush to judgment. They aren't alone.
She has offered these officers up as red meat to an angry mob that's inconsistent with our system of justice and the rule of law.
The White House says the decision to investigate is up to Lynch, a former federal prosecutor.
She has a very good understanding of the way that those law enforcement and prosecutorial enterprises should conduct themselves.
The police union in Baltimore has called for an independent prosecutor, saying that the state attorney has conflicts of interest. Meanwhile, a Justice Department spokeswoman says that Lynch is, quote, actively considering an investigation, especially after her visit to Baltimore. Brian?
Susanne LaFrankie at the White House. Thank you. Some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team has been covering in today's world. There is new evidence tonight that a Germanwings co-pilot deliberately crashed a plane into the French Alps in March, killing all 158 people on board. The evidence is in the flight data recorder from the plane, but from a different flight earlier that day. Investigators say Andreas Lubitz, during the earlier flight, appears to have practiced putting the plane into a controlled descent. That was just 2 hours before the fatal crash. They say the pilot probably left the cockpit during the earlier flight as well. A message sent before last weekend's Texas shooting is now confirmed to be from the Twitter account of one of the gunmen. The tweet posted to Elton Simpson's account said, "May Allah accept us as Mujahideen, or holy warriors." The account used the hashtag Texas Attack, along with images of an American-born radical killed by the CIA in Yemen. A federal official says Simpson was being investigated at the time of the shooting. A security guard outside a Mohammed cartoon contest was injured before both gunmen were shot and killed by police. A surefire partisan showdown over spending is now in the works on Capitol Hill. The Senate adopted a GOP budget that would not raise taxes. It would come up with $1 trillion over 10 years by replacing Obamacare. Interestingly, Republicans Ted Cruz and Rand Paul, both presidential candidates, joined Democrats in opposing that budget blueprint. Europe's growing migrant crisis shows no signs of letting up. Many have died since the migration began, but tens of thousands more have reached Europe safely. Libya is a main exit point for migrants, and its Coast Guard is also intercepting overcrowded ships. Some 8,300 migrants were saved in the past 5 days, according to the Coast Guard. Among them, more than 200 migrants rescued from a sinking boat today, just north of the Libyan coast. Pope Francis today calls Christian marriage a sign of God's love engraved in creation. At today's general audience, the Holy Father says the sacrament of marriage builds up the church and society. He says marriage is an act of faith in God's plan for humanity and one of selfish love. That would be selfless love. Francis also had some advice for husbands.
Amare la propria moglie come Cristo ama la Chiesa. Questi non sono scherzi, è serio.
The Pope telling husbands to love their wives like Christ loved the church, adding, it's not a joke, this is serious. 32 new Swiss guards are sworn in today. During the Vatican ceremony today, each new recruit raises his right hand and opens 3 fingers. That is a symbol of his faith in the Holy Trinity. Family and friends are invited to the induction ceremony, which is held on May 6th each year. According to the Vatican, 147 Swiss guards died while defending Pope Clement VII during the sack of Rome on May 6th, 1527.
So we do this every year to swear that also we would give, if it's necessary, our life for the popes.
The new Swiss guards invoke the help of God and the saints in their oath of loyalty to the Holy Father. Alan Holdren is inside the Vatican where the ceremony just took place. And Alan, describe for us this colorful, historic ceremony.
Well, it's really a unique event here in the Vatican. Every year, this happens on May the 6th. It's the day that the Swiss Guard celebrates the day that many guards died. Almost 500 years ago, 147 guards died protecting the Pope. That's what these new guards, 32 new guards, swore to do today. They took an oath to protect the Pope and his legitimate successors. These 32 men are all under the age of 30. They pledged to serve 2 years, and this is just formalizing the occasion. They're from different backgrounds, all from Switzerland.
All right, also at the Vatican today, official approval for the canonization of Father Junipero Serra. The Pope said months ago that he would canonize Serra while in the U.S. Isn't this approval from the Congregation of the Causes of the Saints a little late?
Well, it could appear so. This is just the formalization of the process. Pope Francis wanted this canonization. He chose this saint, and he said in an equivalent process, a process that skips that second miracle, he said this man is a saint. This is a man that needs to be a model of evangelization for the United States.
So Father Serra, this future saint, has no second miracle attributed to his intercession, right?
That's exactly right. And Pope Francis has done that on other occasions. He's done that for a saint from France to provide a sort of a model for people in Europe for evangelization. He did the same thing for Joseph Vaz last year, who's the first Sri Lankan saint. This is his process of creating saints in places where he wants to see this new evangelization. In this case, it's in the United States with Father Serra. He, of course, was the man to found 21 missions up the California coast nearly 2 centuries ago.
The Pope seems to be a big fan of Father Serra. Is that accurate?
I think you could say that. He just went to the North American College, which is the American seminary in Rome, to celebrate Father Junipero Serra's life just this last Saturday. He celebrated Mass there. He spoke of him in great terms, said that he was a man ahead of his time. And this is that model that he wants to present to Americans and to people really worldwide of sainthood, someone to follow in holiness.
Our Alan Holdren inside the Vatican tonight. Alan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brian.
And there is bold resistance to a new law now in effect here in D.C. The Daily Signal reports a group of pro-life organizations pledges to continue operating according to their beliefs. That could put them at risk of violating the district's Reproductive Health Non-Discrimination Act. Ovide Lamontagne is General Counsel for Americans United for Life. That's one of the groups involved in this pledge. What are your main concerns about this law?
Well, Brian, first of all, this is an affront to religious freedom as well as to the freedom of association. The law requires employers to hire people who don't believe in the mission of the organization. if it's a religious organization or if it's a secular organization like Americans United for Life, the law requires you to take people in who may be actually directly opposed to what we believe in. And that's unfortunate. It's a very unfortunate because it's a mandate by the government, essentially, that takes away the purpose of the organization to be able to bring people together who share the same commitment to the mission of the organization, for life in this case, and that's where it's really impactful.
So what legal risks are the members of your group taking by resisting this?
Well, you know, the legal risks are in the employment law area. So if someone were to apply for a job and actually be qualified in all respects except for the fact they believe in abortion and they want to promote abortion and they do it in their private life, they could bring a lawsuit to say they were not hired because of discrimination by a pro-life organization. And that subjects you to potentially monetary penalties as well as civil and administrative penalties and what we call injunctive relief, compelling an organization to actually violate essentially their core beliefs by hiring someone who doesn't believe in those core beliefs. And that's just so contrary to the American tradition.
Now, the U.S. Congress can overwhelm or turn around
Yes.
a D.C. law if they can agree on it. The House did, the Senate didn't.
Right.
The President said he'd veto. You've been on Capitol Hill.
Yes.
What kind of feedback are you getting?
Well, first of all, I want to commend the leadership of the House for bringing this forward. They did pass what's called a resolution of disapproval. It's only the fourth time since 1973 that the Congress, one body of the Congress, actually passed something like this. It's a powerful statement that could be used in court, for example, as evidence that the body that's responsible for the federal city, Washington, D.C., is concerned about the unconstitutional actions taken by the District of Columbia. And that's an important statement. There's a lot of energy, even on the Senate side, to make sure that we can find alternative ways of setting aside this unconstitutional law passed by the District of Columbia.
So this is much more than a local concern for people in D.C.
Let me tell you, Brian, a lot of these organizations like ours have national reach. It's the national capital, and how the national capital treats its corporate citizens reverberates across the country. It is important that we stand on principle, and I'm so pleased that other organizations have joined with us to stand up to this particular enactment and this unconstitutional law.
Well, it's a courageous act, and we appreciate you really giving us a good picture of this. Ovide Lamontagne, General Counsel for Americans United for Life, thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Brian.
Coming up, a Catholic alternative to Obamacare gets support from two prominent members of the clergy. Then later, vintage cars and motorcycles turn heads in Beverly Hills. Today, of course, is Wednesday, so the general audience and Pope Francis continued his weekly teaching on the family. He says marriage has been inscribed in creation's design by God. Thanks for joining us on this Wednesday evening, the 6th of May. I'm Brian Patrick. A new Catholic health care program gets support from two prominent American clergy members. Wyatt Goolsby has more on this alternative to Obamacare.
Brian, it's called CMF CURO. It's not insurance, it's the country's first Catholic health sharing ministry. Since the nonprofit launched in January, it's seen steady growth, but today they got an official endorsement from Cardinal Raymond Burke in Rome and Bishop Earl Boyer in Lansing, Michigan. Those endorsements came this afternoon during an international teleconference in Washington. Cardinal Burke says he's an advisor to the program. Since it's launched in January, CMF CURO is serving nearly 400 households and has members in over 40 states. Cardinal Burke says CMF CURO could provide an alternative option to Obamacare and is consistent with church teaching.
We find today that this freedom to carry out the care of the sick, especially, and the care of the needy in accord with a well-formed conscience is being more and more challenged. And that's why a work like CMF CURO is so important, to provide the way in which this kind of care can continue to be given.
CMF CURO is running their program with Samaritan Ministries International, which has been providing health care sharing to different Christian groups for years. Because CMF CURO is not insurance, they do not have to comply with mandates from Obamacare, which means members' monthly payments do not pay for abortion-inducing drugs or contraception. Brian?
Thanks, Wyatt. David Wilson is co-founder of CMF CURO, Catholic Health Ministry. Why did you start the ministry, David?
CMF CURO is a Catholic healthcare sharing experience, Brian, and it provides Catholics that are very concerned about their faith a real option to participate in a healthcare program that is consistent with their faith. We're doing so in partnership with Samaritan Ministries International, which is a long-time healthcare sharing ministry.
What is the significance of Cardinal Burke becoming one of your advisors?
Well, as you know, Cardinal Burke is a very holy and thoughtful man. He is a great advisor. We've had a long relationship with Cardinal Burke for many years, since the foundation of the Christ Medicus Foundation itself, that is really the author of the CMF CURO program.
So members of your group who subscribe to this are expected to refrain from smoking, from excessive drinking. Why is that?
Well, this is a Christian sharing ministry. This is the idea that I am dedicating myself to my faith, and I'm going to care for directly for the needs of the members themselves.
Does that not also make them a better risk?
Well, sure, certainly it does. If you're going to church every week, which is a requirement of the program, you know, you are not participating in lifestyle situations that would be necessarily detrimental to your health. So, no, this is a healthier population of people than the general population. That would be a true statement.
Do you check up on them? How do you confirm that they're living up to the expectations?
Well, to qualify for the program, you have to have your pastor or another member of the parish testify that you are a weekly participant in Mass and you're a part of the parish. And so we can't check up on everybody. Clearly, we're all sinners, Brian. And but the intention is that I'm serious about my faith. These are things that I'm committed to doing. I want to participate in true Christ-centered ministry to my brothers and sisters in Christ that are in need of health care.
So really the idea, it's a heart thing. I mean, you have people that want to be a part of this because of who they are.
Absolutely. This is a spiritual ministry. It's not insurance. It's very important that we communicate to all that this is a ministry in which the members directly take responsibility in Christ-centered Christian sharing for each other's healthcare burdens. And that's very, very important. You have to really say, look, this is part of who I am. It's my self-identity that I'm Catholic, that I'm Christian, and I want to care directly for other members of the ministry. And it's really a commitment. It's a vocation.
It would seem that God would bless an effort like that. It'll be interesting to see how successful you're able to be. David Wilson, CMF CURO Catholic Health Ministry, good luck and thank you for joining us.
Well, God bless you and thank you.
Thank you. Well, earlier we told you about an impending Justice Department probe of the Baltimore Police Department. Well, New York City police are also under scrutiny, so officers are being taught to avoid verbal abuse and needless physical force. Tonight we get an exclusive look at the course they're taking. The chokehold death of Eric Garner has left many New Yorkers wary over interactions with police. Enforcement of low-level crimes, especially within minority communities, has led to allegations of broken policing.
Garner certainly opened our eyes.
A massive retraining of New York City police officers is now underway. The Associated Press got an exclusive look at the course, which involves 35,000 department personnel.
We decided that it made sense to, at the very least, change the way in which our officers receive their in-service trainings.
Part of that training is a 3-day refresher course aimed at discouraging verbal abuse and needless physical force. Emphasis is placed on how to defuse a situation.
We want to talk people into their cuffs. We want to talk them down into compliance.
The instructors don't mention Garner, but the case hangs heavy over the program.
What we haven't worked on is in nonviolent, non-cooperative situations, how do we deal with people?
The course also includes role play, where officers apply classroom lessons in a Hollywood-style cityscape.
You're going to be under arrest, sir.
Why?
It seems that you have been drinking and driving, sir.
I understand that, but...
For your safety and for ours, you're going to be under arrest, sir.
In my experience, I realized that if I try to meet his tone with my tone, it doesn't get better. I realized, all right, I have to try to bring the person down to me.
Still, some in the community worry the training will simply take the place of much-needed reform.
There really needs to be a mechanism in place so that when someone violates what they learned in training or they violate the law, that they're held accountable to that and that there's some actions that will help protect communities.
Other aspects of the program include the latest tactics for taking down suspects without putting pressure on the neck or chest. The message here, to keep cool and try to be nice. Up next, from Genesis to Revelation, the entire Bible is being read aloud on the Capitol steps. And the royal couple with 2 kids in tow spend a few weeks in the country getting their bearings. The Pontifical Swiss Guard dates back to January 22, 1506. According to the Vatican, on that day, a group of 150 Swiss soldiers entered the Vatican for the first time. They were blessed by Pope Julius II. Thanks for joining us on this 6th day of May. Ahead of tomorrow's National Day of Prayer, part of that celebration is already underway at the U.S. Capitol here in Washington. Jason Calvi reports.
You could say something of biblical proportions happened at the Capitol today. It captured the attention of people passing by.
Well, I was just was not expecting this at all, and it was very exciting.
Do not oppress widows, orphans, foreigners, and the poor.
It's the 26th annual U.S. Capitol Bible Reading Marathon.
I asked, where are you going?
They read the good book all day and night for 90 hours.
Woe to him who builds his house. Oh my goodness, I was so in tears to read the Bible in the U.S. Capitol, and especially today's my birthday. It is the best gift ever.
I will overthrow chariots and the Bible Marathon began in 1990, each by the sword of his brother. But it was a first for me.
Do not be like your ancestors, and those who decide to read will have their choice of languages. Here's one, Lithuanian, Somali, and here's one, Haitian.
And it's an invitation for those passing by to pick up the Bible.
It's good.
What has it meant for you personally?
It's transformed my life. It keeps me every day. It provides the answers to everything in life.
The last chapter of the Bible will be read at noon tomorrow, the National Day of Prayer.
At that time, I will bring you home.
At the Capitol, Jason Calvi, EWTN News Nightly.
Return to me, declares the Lord Almighty, and I will return to you.
Beautiful story. Thank you, Jason. Finally, tonight, a rare showcase of classic and vintage cars from around the world comes to Southern California. Beverly Hills, of course, is known for its red carpet glamour, but here it's the cars that turn heads. At the 6th Annual Greystone Mansion, Concours d'Elegance, 160 classic automobiles from 15 classes are on display. The show is a chance for the public to see some of the most impressive cars and motorcycles built before 1975.
It's the Academy Awards of Cars. It's the Art Museum of Cars. You know, a lot of these cars are works of art. A lot of them are very rare. They've been painstakingly restored.
One of this year's standout cars, a 1914 Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. Prince William and Duchess Kate have packed up their 2 kids. They're headed for their country home. They are expected to stay there for several weeks, trying to get used to taking care of a toddler and an infant. Princess Charlotte was born just 4 days ago, and she's already met close family members, including the Queen, her great-grandmother. William is on paternity leave from his new job as an air ambulance pilot. Until tomorrow, for the EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Brian Patrick. Tonight, we leave you with the Harlem Globetrotters teaching Pope Francis some new tricks, and we revisit today's induction of the new Swiss Guards. Good night and God bless you.